Hey, Knights. I probably sounded stuffy saying that. So this is the next 2 chapters for the Dancing Across Time. So this is chapter 11, Rise of the Cybermen. Jessie and the doctor laughed as they told Celine more about their adventures in the console room. Jessie draped in the captain's chair, the doctor's arm around her shoulders. And that weird monkskin lady with the big eyes, the doctor was saying through his laughs, do you remember? The way she looked at you, and then she opened her mouth and fire comes out? Would have been frazzled, she agreed, doubling over in laughter. Yeah, 1 minute she's standing there, and the next minute, both of them mimic fire coming out of their mouths with a loud roar as they collapse and laughs again. Celine leaned against the console, grinning. Where was that then? Mesfaline? She joked. What happened? Oh, it was on this, planet thing, the doctor replied. Asteroid. It's a long story. You had to be there. He blinked. What are you doing that for? Celine looked down at the button she was holding down. Because you told me to, she replied slowly. The doctor swallowed. When was that? Celine checked her watch. About half an hour ago. Jessie snorted loudly, and the doctor scratched his head. You can let go now. Celine narrowed her eyes. Okay, how long has it been since I could have stopped? The doctor thought. 10 minutes, maybe 20? He looked at Celine sheepishly. 29? Jessie burst out laughing at that, but Celine looked at him fiercely. You just forgot me, she accused. No, the doctor protested quickly. I was calibrating. No, I know exactly what I'm doing. Something exploded on the console, and the TARDIS shuddered, throwing Jessie back onto the floor. She groaned, rolling over. What happened? She shouted. The time vortex is gone, the doctor whispered in shock, looking at the console. That's impossible. It's just gone. He leapt into action, running around the console. Brace yourself, he shouted. We're going to crash. Jessie grabbed onto the railing nearby, Celine clinging to one of the coral structures when the TARDIS jerked to a sudden stop, sending both girls crashing to the floor. The doctor ran over to check on Jessie, who gave him a thumbs up. Everyone all right? He asked. Jess? She nodded, accepting his hand to get up. Celine? I'm fine, Celine replied, standing. I'm okay. Jessie held a hand to her head, wincing when it began to pound. I've got a killer headache now, though. The doctor was looking at the console in shock. She's dead, he whispered. The TARDIS is dead. What? Celine asked sharply, looking at the rotor, which was now dim. But can't you fix it? Jessie asked. There's nothing to fix, the doctor said sadly, as if he was still having trouble believing it. She's perished, the last TARDIS in the universe, extinct. Something made Jessie want to say it was impossible, but she shook her head, wincing. We can get help, though, right? Where from? The doctor asked. We've landed. We've got to be somewhere. We fell out of the vortex, through the void, into nothingness. We're in some sort of no place, the silent realm, the lost dimension. The door to the TARDIS opened, and Celine grinned as she looked outside, then threw a look over her shoulder, otherwise known as London. The doctor blinked in surprise, and Jessie followed Celine out into, indeed, London. London, England, Earth, she crowed, then ran over to his newspaper stand. Hold on. She looked at the headlines and nodded. 1st of February this year. She raised an eyebrow at the doctor. Not exactly far-flung, is it? So, the doctor said casually, looking around. This is London. Yep, Celine agreed. Your city. That's the one. Just as we left it. Bang on. The doctor pointed upward. And that includes the Zeppelins? Jessie looked up and inhaled sharply when she saw the airships overhead. What the hell, she breathed. That's beautiful. Okay, Celine said slowly. It's always possible that London's got an internal Zeppelin festival. Pretty sure that's not it, Jessie commented. This is not your world, the doctor decided. But if the date's the same, it's parallel, right? Celine asked, smiling. Am I right? It's like a parallel Earth where you've got Zeppelins. Am I right? She grinned, jumping up and down. I'm right, aren't I? Must be. Jessie looked around. So a parallel world where? Oh, come on, Celine told her, grinning. You've seen it on films, like in an alternate to our world where everything's the same, but a little bit different. Jessie nodded along when something caught her eye, and her eyes widened in shock and surprise. She began walking forward as if being controlled. She barely heard Celine behind her, like, I don't know, traffic lights are blue. Tony Blair never got elected. And he's still alive, Jessie whispered, her fingers ghosting over an advert for something called Cybus Industries. And over the parallel version of Grant Ward's face. A parallel world, and Grant's still alive. Don't look at it, Jess, the doctor warned her, trying to gently tug her away. Don't even think about it. This is not your world. It's Grant, Jessie whispered, turning to him. And he's real. She smiled, turning back to look at the advert. He joined Cybus instead of S.H.I.E.L.D., which means he never went on a mission that could get him killed. Everyone was talking about how one day his emotions would one day get in the way of his job. They did, but here they don't. Jess, if you've ever trusted me, then listen to me now, the doctor told her. Stop looking at it. Your Grant's dead. He died in your arms when I took you to see his death. That is not your Grant. That is a Grant. For all we know, the both of you are here, his own Celine and his own Jessie. There's someone else, but they're not the two of you. You can't see him, not ever. Jessie swallowed and watched the doctor go back to the TARDIS. She looked at Celine. But he's still alive, she whispered. Celine silently held out her arms, and Jessie hugged her friend hard, crying into her shoulder. It's all right, Celine tried to soothe her. It's all right. Jessie pulled away, then sat down on a bench. Celine nodded understanding, then headed back to the TARDIS as well. The moment Celine was gone, Jessie ran towards the Thames River. The doctor looked up when Celine entered alone. I thought you were keeping an eye on her. She's all right, Celine told him. She goes wandering off, parallel world. It's like a gingerbread house, all those temptations calling out. Is there anything that could tempt me? Celine asked. The doctor shrugged. Well, I don't know. I can't worry about everything. If I could just get this thing too. He kicked the console, then winced and bounced on one foot. Ow. Celine smirked. Did that help? Yes, he said. She smirked even wider and began to giggle. Did that hurt? He glared at her. Yes. He put his foot down and winced. Ow. She burst out laughing and he glared at her, but continued to explain as he walked around the console. We're not meant to be here. The TARDIS draws its power from the universe, but it's the wrong universe. He thought, then found a way she might understand. It's like diesel in a patrol engine. Friends from college made me look at comics all the time, Celine said. People go hopping from one alternate world to another. It's easy. The doctor shook his head. Not in the real world. It used to be easy, when the Time Lords kept their eye on everything. You could hop between realities, at home in time for tea. They died, and they took it all with them. The walls of reality closed. The worlds were sealed. Everything became that bit less kind. So, how did we get here? I don't know. Accident? Should have been impossible. Now we're trapped. Something green and flashing caught his eye, and he looked down over the console to look into the grated holes of the TARDIS floor. What's that? Celine looked down, too. What's what? That, there, he pointed. Is that a reflection? He looked up to check. It's a light, is it? Is that a light? He grinned. I think that's a light. That's all we need. We've got power. He laughed and held up a hand, and Celine high-fived it. Celine, we've got power. Ha! He dropped down beneath the grating and began working under the console. It's alive. What is it? She asked, laying down and leaning on her elbows. It's nothing. He held up the light. It's tiny, one of those insignificant little power cells that no one ever bothered about, and it's clinging onto life, with 1 little ounce of reality tucked away inside. I understood none of that, but is it enough to get us home? Not yet. I need to charge it up. Celine shrugged. We could go outside and latch it onto the natural grid. The doctor shook his head, taking the light and looking at it. Wrong sort of energy. It's got to come from our universe. We don't have anything. The doctor grinned. There's me. He blew on the light, and he grinned as it began getting brighter. I just gave away 10 years of my life, worth every second. Celine frowned as the light began to dim. It's going out. Is that okay? It's on a recharging cycle, he explained, holding up a hand, and Celine helped haul him back up. It'll loop around, power back up, and be ready to take us home in, 24 hours, he guessed? So that gives us 24 hours on a parallel world, Celine asked, just to make sure. Shore leave, the doctor confirmed. As long as we keep our heads down. Easy, no problem. Let's go and tell her. Jessie was still staring at her galaxy in shock after she connected to the Cybus network. She barely acknowledged hearing the doctor, and Celine woke up. There you are, the doctor said brightly. You all right? She simply snorted, and he took that as a cue to continue. No applause. I fixed it. 24 hours, and then we're flying back to reality. It was then that he seemed to realize the state she was in. What is it? My phone connected, she replied, waving the said object. There's this Cybus network. It finds your phone. It gave me internet access. Jessie, whatever it says, this is the wrong world, the doctor told her, seeming frustrated with her. She shook her head, looking at him. I don't exist. Both Celine and the doctor seemed taken aback. What do you mean? The doctor asked slowly. There's no Jessie Nightshade, she replied, looking back at her phone. I was never born. I checked everything, and I found Grant. He's one of the top experts in the world. And Sky, she smiled sadly. He married Sky, an ending that both of them should have had. Give me that phone, the doctor told her. She shook her head, standing up. They're rich. They've got everything they want, but they haven't got me. I've got to see him. You can't, the doctor insisted. I just want to see him. I can't let you. You just said 24 hours. You can't just become one of their best friends. That's not the way it works. He turned to Celine as if looking for help. Celine, tell her. 24 hours, right? Celine asked. The doctor blinked. Where are you going then? I can do what I want, she replied, walking in the opposite direction with an encouraging nod to Jessie. Jessie began walking backwards as well. I've got the address and everything. The doctor shook his head, holding his hand out to both of them. Stay where you are, both of them. Both girls ignored him and kept walking. Jessie, come back here. Celine, come back here right now. I just want to see him, Jessie protested, looking back. I've got things to see too, Celine agreed. Like what? The doctor asked. Well, you don't know anything about me, do you? Celine challenged. It's always been about Jessie, and I understand that. I've got to go, Jessie whispered, turning on her heel and running. Celine watched her best friend run, then looked at the doctor. Go on. There's never been a choice, right? You can only chase one of us. It won't be me. Go on. The doctor sighed, then took off in the direction Jessie ran. Back here, 24 hours. Jessie scrolled through her phone, then began talking when the doctor caught up to her. Celine always had a good life until a few of her good friends joined the military. Every single one of them died. They were great people, always joking around them. He could feel her eyes on her. And then they died, caught in a war getting others out of the way. It's been 5 years, right after we were attacked at school by frost giants in Chitauri. I never knew, he whispered. You never asked, she pointed out. You never said. She shrugged. That's Celine. I suppose we took her for granted. She looked at him. Do you think they're still alive, her friends? Could be, the doctor replied. Like I said, parallel world. Gingerbread house. We need to get out of here as fast as we can. Beeps echoed throughout the street, and everyone they were surrounded by stopped simultaneously, including the policeman. She frowned, looking around. What are they all doing? They've stopped. Yes, thank you, Dr. Obvious. The pods that were in everyone's ears. Now that's just odd, Jessie thought, as she took it all in, getting the feeling something was wrong, began to flash. It's the earpieces, the doctor said, like Bluetooth attachments, but everyone's connected together. Jessie checked her phone to see downloads running across the screen. It's on my phone. It's automatic. Look. He bent over her shoulder and she focused on her phone instead of how she could barely feel his breath on her neck. It's downloading. Is that what they're all getting? She read the downloads. News, international news, sports, weather. They get it direct, the doctor said, making a face. Downloaded right into their heads. TV schedules, lottery numbers. Everyone shares the same information. A daily download published by Cybus Industries. Jessie raised an eyebrow when joke rolled across the screen, then looked up when everyone around them began to laugh, then continued going on their way. Okay, that's just wrong. You lot, the doctor commented. You're obsessed. You do anything for the latest upgrade. Oi, Jessie whined, slapping his arm. It's not my lot. Different world, remember? It's not so far off your world, the doctor told her. This place is only parallel. He raised an eyebrow, looking at the logo that flashed. Oh, look at that. Cybus Industries, owners of just about every company in Britain. And a certain Mr. Grant Ward is one of their top employees. Very well connected. Jessie gave him her best puppy dog eyes, and he said, Oh, okay, I give up. Let's go and see him. She squealed into light and grabbed his arm, running off. Celine walked through the streets of the parallel world, then realized she hadn't asked if there was a parallel version of her. She pulled out her phone and began trying to get a connection. She turned when she heard the squeal of brakes, seeing a blue van stop at an intersection rather hard. She raised an eyebrow, then looked back down when she got a connection. Right then, she said brightly, looking through her contacts. Now. She yelped when a blonde-haired young man jumped out of the van and grabbed her arm. I've been looking for you everywhere. What? She protested when he pushed her inside of the van. Sally, you were the one who told us don't contact your friends and family because it puts them in danger. Celine couldn't believe it. The stupid leather doctor's messed up name for me is my parallel self? Good Lord. Yeah, she said slowly. Sally said that. The young man nodded and Celine sighed. Of course I did. Just testing. I saw them. I taped them. They went round back fairs, gathering up the homeless like the child catcher. They must have taken 4 dozen. The vans were hired out to a company called International Electromatics. Jessie craned her neck to see a blonde-haired woman driving the van. But I did a protocol search. Turns out that's a dummy company established by guess who? I don't know, she replied sarcastically. Who? Both of the two spoke at the same time. Cybus Industries. Now we've got evidence, the man said confidently. The woman checked something on the dashboard. Bad news is they've arrested Thin Jimmy, so that just leaves you. Leaves me what? She asked. The number one, the woman replied. Top of the list, London's most wanted. Okay, Celine agreed, then realized what had just been said. London's most wanted. Say that again? It was nighttime by the time the van finally stopped. The two unknown people who apparently knew her led her towards a house. The man stopped, holding up a hand. There's a light on, he hissed. There's someone inside the base. Mrs. Monroe, we've got visitors. Celine yelped softly when she saw them both pull out guns. 1, 2, 3, go! Celine hurried behind them when they burst into the house, and Celine's dropped when she saw a look-alike of herself spin around as well, a gun of her own drawn. What the hell are you doing? Her parallel self demanded. Sally Harper, she thought with a snort. What are you doing there? The man demanded, looking between Sally and Celine. What am I doing here? Sally asked, then pointed her gun at Celine. What am I doing there? Celine held up her hands as the two turned to her, guns raised. Oh, this is going to be just pleasant. Jessie looked around as they approached the Ward mansion. She grinned as a limo drove past. They've got visitors, the doctor noted. Jessie nodded. February the 1st, Sky's birthday, she grinned. Even in a parallel universe, she still loves a party. Well, given Grant Ward's guest list, I wouldn't mind a look, he grinned at her. And there is one guaranteed way of getting inside. Jessie smirked as he pulled out an object he was talking about. Psychic paper. What do you want to be? The doctor was the one who chose who they were, and Jessie sighed as she carried a tray of champagne on her shoulder, tugging at the skirt of her serving uniform. We could have been anyone, she grumbled. Got us in, didn't it? The doctor pointed out. You're in charge of the psychic paper, she continued. We could have been guests, celebrities, Sir Dr. Dame Jessie, Dame Bad Wolf, even. But no, we end up serving, she snorted. I had enough of this as a bloody cafeteria lady at the school. If you want to know what's going on, work in the kitchens, the doctor advised. According to Lucy, that woman over there, Jessie threw a look over her shoulder. Who's Lucy? The doctor nodded to another woman. She's carrying the salmon pinwheels. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, that's Lucy, is it? Yeah, the doctor agreed, then shifted his tray to a black man. Lucy says this is the president of Great Britain. What? She asked in surprise. There's a president, not a prime minister? Seems so. Or maybe Lucy's just a bit thick, Jessie suggested. The doctor opened his mouth to say something when a familiar voice to her, the last time she heard it, so weak, this time strong, called out, Excuse me. She pushed the guests to make it to the front of the mansion. Thank you very much, thank you. If I could just have your attention, please? Jessie stopped in front of the staircase, still in shock as she looked up at who definitely, to her, looked like Grant Ward from her universe. Oh my God, she whispered as the doctor joined her. I'd like to say thank you to you all for coming on this, he tilted his head. This very special occasion, my wife's 29th. Don't believe that one of the guests called out, and Jessie grinned. What? The doctor asked. Jessie grinned at him. Sky's currently 29 in the other world. Trust me on this, Grant told him. And so, without further ado, here she is, the birthday girl, my lovely wife, Sky Ward. Jessie nodded in appreciation as Sky joined Grant on the steps in a tight black dress, her hair loose. Looks just like her, she whispered. Sky held up her hands to quiet the applause. No, I'm not going to give a speech, she warned them. That is what my parties are famous for. No work, no politics, just a few good friends, and plenty of black market whiskey. Jessie's jaw dropped at that as people began laughing, and Sky sent a wink to the black man. Sorry, Mr. President. Jessie shook her head, smirking a little as Sky waved her hands. So get on with it. Enjoy, enjoy. You can't stay, the doctor whispered, even if there was some way of telling them. Jessie shook her head. Of course I can't, she agreed, turning away from the stairs as Grant and Sky descended. I still got Sky at home, my real Sky. I couldn't just leave her, could I? It's what I promised, to look after Sky. It's just... They've got each other here. Sky's got no one. She's got the S.H.I.E.L.D. team, and she's got you, the doctor pointed out. Those two haven't. All these different worlds, and not one of them gets it right. Jessie whipped around, her ponytail smacking the doctor in the face when Sky let out a squeal, kneeling down to a Yorkie that padded up to her. Jessie, there's my little girl. Come to Mommy. She picked her up and grinned. Yes, good girl, aren't you? Jessie's jaw dropped, and the doctor got next to her. She glared at him and raised her hand warningly, and he shut his mouth with an audible plump. Sorry, he apologized. Never been so glad for wearing better under layers, Celine commented sarcastically as the two she had met, now known as Jake Siddons, not to be confused with Simmons, she thought, and Mrs. Moore, for her first name still unknown, scanned her shirt off, leaving her just in her short bras and jeans. She's clean, Jake reported, no bugs. But this is off the scale, Sally protested, looking her over. She's flesh and blood. How did that happen? Well, it could be that Cybus Industries have perfected the science of human cloning. Or your father had a bike. And your name is Celine, not Sally? Sally added. Celine nodded fiercely. Celine, Dad was Jackson Harper, used to work all over the world, went to Spanish 1 year, never came back. But that's my dad, Sally whispered, then narrowed her eyes. So we're sisters? God, that's just wrong, Celine muttered. Who else could it be? Jake asked. I don't know, Sally replied, turning back to whatever it was she had been doing. But she doesn't just look like me. She's exactly the same. There's something else going on here, Jake. So, who exactly are you lot? Celine asked. We? Sally asked, turning back. We are the preachers, as in the gospel truth. Celine started rather loudly, but Celine gestured to her ears. You see, no earplugs. Celine looked around to see Monroe and Jack didn't have the plugs either. While the rest of the world downloads from Cybus Industries, we have got freedom. You're talking to London's most wanted, but target number 1 is Lumic, and we're going to bring him down. Lumic. Celine filed away the name, then started again when she saw where they were. From your kitchen. Got a problem with that? Sally retorted. Celine just grinned, shaking her head. Nah, it's a good kitchen. Moreau looked up from the computer she was looking on. It's an upload from Gemini. Who's Gemini? Celine asked, craning her neck. Moore looked back up. The vans are back. They're moving out of Battersea. Looks like Gemini was right. Lumic's finally making a move. And we are right behind him. Sally cocked the gun she was holding. Pack up. We're leaving. Jessie kept an eye on Skye, who was laughing with the president. She was so caught up she didn't hear the man beside her until he spoke. I remember her 21st. Champagne was the one of her best friends from school, Gemma Simmons. Jessie jumped in surprise, partly because it was Grant, another because she found out Gemma had a parallel self here as well. Is she here? Grant shook his head. No, she took a mission trip to Ireland. No idea when she gets back. Skye's starting to worry. Sorry. Jessie looked down at her tray, then held it out. Champagne? Grant grinned. Oh, might as well. He took a glass and nodded his thanks. I'm paying for it. Big night for you. Grant nodded to Skye. For her. Still, she's happy. She should be. It's a great party. Do you think? You can trust me. Jessie smiled out, then nodded to Skye. So, how long have you two been married? 6 years. No kids or anyone close? We keep putting it off, Grant replied, tilting his head to keep an eye on Skye. It's not too late, Jessie told him. She's only 30. 29, Grant corrected. Jessie smirked. Right, 29. Grant kept silent for a moment before he spoke again. It's still too late. I moved out last month, but we're going to keep it quiet. Jessie looked at him sharply. What? She thought in shock. You know it's bad for business. He stopped and looked at her curiously. Why am I telling you all this? We haven't met before, have we? I don't know. You just seem sort of, what? I don't know, just sort of right. Jessie smiled a little before going off to serve more drinks, but she stopped once more when she heard what Grant said next. Stevie, how's things? How's it going at Torchwood? Torchwood? I don't know what they are doing, but it seems to be the target. Celine listened to Sally from inside the van Monroe was with her in. Big house, fair bit of money. Now we've got to find a way to get in. Moore looked up from her computer. I have identified the address. It belongs to Grant Ward, one of the top millionaire employees for Lumic. Celine looked up. Grant Ward? Moore nodded. He is listed as one of Lumic's henchmen, a traitor to the state. But we've got to get in there. Now shut it, duplicate, Sally snapped. That's what I just said. Celine grumbled and folded her arms. Meh. Sally made it a few more minutes before her stomach caught up with her, and her head ached. She pushed through the other servers, hearing Grant calling after her. She put her tray on a counter nearby before making it to the nearest bathroom and leaning against the door, clutching her head as everything seemed to spin. She sank to the floor, putting her head in her arms and squeezing her eyes shut. She heard knocking on the door, but she reached up and simply locked it, curling up further, feeling as if the knife was punching through her skull. The doomsday of the girl fighting war she cannot win, she heard the voice of the thief. No, that was familiar, and Jessie looked up slowly when she realized what it was. She'd heard that before, when she looked into the heart of the TARDIS. Not today, my wolf. The headache cut out, and Jessie panted hard, throwing her head back against the door. What the hell was that? She muttered. There was banging on the door some more. Jess, the doctor shouted. She fumbled for the door handle and pulled herself hearing the buzz of the sonic screwdriver. She unlocked it and opened the door, looking at the doctor's extremely worried face. He sighed in relief and pulled her in tightly for a hug. "Don't run off again," he demanded. "No promises," Jessie replied shakily as he pulled her over to a window. She gasped when she saw the robot soldiers marching on the mansion in the shape of humans. "They're what I saw in my nightmare." The doctor nodded grimly. "It's happening again." "What do you mean?" "I've seen them before." Jessie looked at him. "What are they?" He swallowed. "Cybermen." The windows of the other side smashed inwards, and several Cybermen marched through the broken windows, as through. The doctor pulled Jessie with him so they stood closer to the president when his phone rang. "Mr. Lumick," he spat into it. "Mr. President," the voice of who could have only been John Lumick replied smoothly. "I suppose a remark about crashing the party would be appropriate at this point." "I forbade this." "These are my children, sir. Would you deny my family?" "What are they, robots?" Jessie asked the doctor. He shook his head. "Worse than that." "Who are these people?" the president asked. "Doesn't matter," Lumick replied. Jessie's jaw dropped. "They're people?" "They were," the doctor replied grimly, "until they had all their humanity taken away. That's a living brain jammed inside a cybernetic body with a heart of steel. All emotion removed." "Why no emotions?" "Because it hurts." Jessie gagged a little as the president continued. "I demand to know, Lumick, these people, who are they?" "They were homeless and wretched and useless until I saved them and elevated them and gave them life eternal," Lumick replied. "And now I leave you in their capable hands. Good night, sir. Good night, Mr. President." The phone clicked off and the lead Cyberman spoke. "We have been upgraded." "Into what?" the doctor asked. "The next level of mankind. We are human point 2. Every citizen will receive a free upgrade. You will become like us." "I'm sorry," the president apologized. "I'm so sorry for what's been done to you. But listen to me. This experiment ends tonight. Upgrade is compulsory. And if I refuse?" The doctor shook his head. "Don't," he warned. "What if I refuse?" the president continued, ignoring the doctor. The doctor stepped forward. "I'm telling you, don't," he insisted. The president barely spared him a glance. "What happens if I refuse?" "Then you are not compatible," the Cyberman replied. "What happens then?" "You will be deleted." Jessie gasped in shock when the Cyberman's hand clamped onto the president's neck. An electric shocks wrapped through the man's body. The guests screamed all around them, and the doctor grabbed Jessie's hand. "Run," he told her. They ran over to one of the windows, and they jumped through, landing outside. "There's nothing we can do." "Sky and Grant are in there," she told him. "They're not your Sky and Grant. Come on." Jessie ran after him, but skidded to a halt when a row of Cybermen came marching towards them. The doctor growled, and they turned tail, going around the other side of the house, just as Grant jumped out of one of the windows. She grabbed his arm. "Quick!" she shouted to him. The three of them kept running, and the doctor looked at Grant. "Grant, is there a way out?" he asked. "The side gates," he replied immediately, leading them in that direction. "Who are you? How do you know so much?" The doctor snorted. "You wouldn't believe it in a million years." "And how many of these things are there?" "Here," Jessie shouted as more Cybermen cut them off. The ringing of bullets through the air cut them off, and the Cybermen halted as a familiar figure in an unfamiliar one ran up to Jessie, staring at her best friend in shock. "Selene, where the hell did you get that outfit?" she asked. "No offense, sweetheart, but who the hell are you?" was her friend's reply. "Jessie!" Jessie turned, blinking as the real Selene ran towards them, 2 guns clenched in her hands. "That's not me," she gasped, stopping by them and handing her one of the guns. "That's like the other one." The doctor groaned. "Oh, as if things weren't bad enough. Now there's 2 Selenes." "It's Sally," the lookalike corrected. Jessie couldn't help but snort loudly, and Selene grinned at her. "Of course. Put the guns down," the doctor ordered. "Bullets won't stop them." Jessie tucked her gun into the waist of her serving skirt, and Selene did the same thing into her jeans. But the man with Sally kept shooting. The doctor had to say it again. "No! Stop shooting! Now!" The man finally did, and the doctor turned to the Cybermen. "We surrender." Jessie's jaw dropped, but the doctor turned to them. "Hands up," he whispered, and she did obediently, followed by Selene. Grant was the next one, and lastly Sally and her friends. There's no need to damage us. We're good stock. We volunteer for the upgrade program. Take us to be processed. You are rogue elements, the Cyberman in front announced. The doctor narrowed his eyes. But we surrender. You are incompatible. But this is a surrender. Give it up, Celine whispered. You will be deleted, the Cyberman decided. But we surrender, the doctor insisted. Listen to me. We surrender. You are inferior. Man will be reborn as Cyberman, but you will perish under maximum deletion. Delete, the Cyberman began to chorus. Delete, delete. So Jessie swallowed and closed her eyes and concentrated. Here comes the nightmares. Chapter 12. The Age of Steel. The doctor clenched the TARDIS power cell and began to point them at the Cybermen. But he only got a little bit off before thunder cracked overhead. Lightning spat down from the sky, and Jessie raised her hands, bouncing it out to the Cybermen. Electricity wrapped around them, and the doctor added the power from the cell, and the Cybermen all disintegrated. Jessie stumbled around afterwards, looking a little disoriented, and Celine helped support her. What the hell was that? Sally demanded. We'll have that instead, the doctor decided, pocketing the power cell and taking Jessie's other hand. Run. They ran through the gates, and the van's horn honked, and a woman's head poked out of the window. Everybody in, she shouted. Grant stopped. I've got to go back, he said. My wife's in there. Anyone inside that house is dead, the doctor replied bluntly, turning to Grant. If you want to help, then don't let her die for nothing. You've got to come with us right now. Come on, the women shouted again as they ran towards the van. Get a move on. Jessie stopped as well, looking back towards the house, a haunted look in her eyes. The doctor stopped and took her hand. Jess, she's not your sky, he whispered. She swallowed and nodded. I know. He tugged her arm. Come on. Finished chatting? The woman asked as they climbed into the van. Never seen a slower getaway in my life. What was that thing? Sally asked after the other two had introduced themselves. Jessie was in between the doctor and Grant. Celine, with her back to the seat, Mrs. Moreau was in. Little bit of technology from my home, the doctor replied, rotating the power cell back and forth. It stopped glowing, Celine noted. Has it run out? The doctor shook his head. It's on a revitalizing loop. It's just charging back up in about 4 hours. Right, Sally commented, folding her arms. So we don't have a weapon anymore. Unless you want melted Cybermen and everywhere or fried Cybermen, Jessie offered. The doctor sent her a look, and she grumbled, or not. Yeah, we've got weapons, Jake said. Might not be one of those metal things, but they're good enough for men like him. Jessie narrowed her eyes when the accusation was thrown at Grant, who hadn't reacted. Leave him alone. What's he done wrong? He snorted. Oh, just laid a trap that wiped out the government and left Lumic in charge. Grant finally looked up angrily. If I was part of all that, do you think I'd leave my wife inside? Maybe your plan went wrong, Sally suggested. Still gives us the right to execute you, though. Celine growled warningly, and the doctor leaned forward. Talk about executions, you'll make me your enemy. And take some really good advice, you don't want to do that, he warned. All the same, we have evidence that says Grant Ward's been working for Lumic since 20.13. Is that true? Jessie asked in surprise. Sally turned. Tell them, Mrs. We've got a government mole who feeds us information, Nora replied. Lumic's private files, his South American operations, the lot. Secret broadcasts twice a week. Grant raised an eyebrow. Broadcast from Gemini? Jessie hitched her breath. Gemini. I've heard that before. And how do you know that? Sally demanded. I'm Gemini, Grant replied. That's me. And Jessie remembered. She grinned with the realization, and drew the doctor down so she could whisper in his ear. There was an undercover operation one time in S.H.I.E.L.D. that Grant and Sky went down under. They had a broadcast called Gemini that they used to warn people nearby about any potential danger to them. The doctor grinned, but Sally simply snorted. Yeah, well, you would say that. Encrypted wavelength 657 using binary 9. Grant rattled off instantly, and Sally looked taken aback, and Jessie grinned wider. That's the only reason I was working for Lumic, to get information. I was never Cybus to begin with. He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out the usual shield standard 9mm, or 9mm, and the shield badge, and Jesse and Celine moved together. Shield sent me undercover. Took me years for a while, and I never thought I'd need to use Gemini. When I did, I thought I was broadcasting to the security services and back to them. And what do I get? Scooby-Doo and his gang, he snorted. They've even got the van. And I never was told what exactly Sally is London's best wanted, Celine brought up. She grumbled. Parking tickets. Grant snorted again. Great. Yeah, they were deliberate, Sally commented. I was fighting the system. Park anywhere, that's me. Good policy, the doctor commented. I'm the doctor, by the way, if anyone's interested. Partner in crime over there is Celine. And I'm Jessie. Jessie ran it out, waving a hand. Hello. Even better, Grant commented. That's the name of my dog, he sighed. Still, at least I've got the catering staff on my side. Knew it, Jessie told him. Knew you weren't a traitor. Why is that, then? Grant asked, looking at her. She shrugged. I just did. Grant sighed, slumping against the wall of the van. They took my wife. Jessie swallowed. She might still be alive. Grant shook his head. That's even worse, because that's what Lumik does. He takes the living and turns them into those machines. Cybermen, the doctor corrected. They're called Cybermen. He gestured to his ears. And I'd take those ear pods off if I were you. You never know. Lumik could be listening. Grant pulled them out, showing the symbols on them. Shield design. Most agents wear them. We just aren't controlled. Jessie grinned. This shield is just as brilliant. Celine grinned back, and even the doctor looked impressed. But he researched himself. He's still just a businessman. He's assassinated the president. All we need to do is get to the city and inform the authorities. He got a cold look on his face, because I promise you, this ends tonight. Jake poked his head past a fence and blinked. What the hell? Jessie looked around as well, and her jaw dropped when she saw several people walk past them, looking like zombies. What's going on with them? It's the ear pods, the doctor replied grimly. Lumik's taking control. Can't we just take them off? Don't, the doctor replied sharply, and Jessie blinked, holding up her hands. Cause a brainstorm, he sighed, looking back at the people as Jake disappeared with Sally. For such an intelligent lot, you aren't half suspectable. Give anyone a chance to take control, and you submit. Sometimes I think you like it. Easy life. Hey, Celine whined. Hey, Jake called as well from around another corner. Come and see. Jessie joined him, seeing Cybermen and more people. Where are they all going? She asked. I don't know, the doctor admitted, looking around. Lumik must have a base of operation. Grant nodded, cocking his gun. Battersea, that's where he was building his prototypes. Why is he doing it? Jessie asked. Grant shrugged. He's dying. This is all sorted out as a way of prolonging life, of keeping the brain alive at any cost. We've seen Cybermen before, though, haven't we? Jessie asked, turning to the doctor. My nightmare, and then the head in Van Statten's museum. There are Cybermen in our universe, the doctor admitted. They started on an ordinary world just like this, and then swarmed across the galaxy. This lot are the parallel version, and they're just starting from scratch right here on Earth. What the hell are you two going on about? Grant demanded. Sally waved a hand. Never mind that. Come on. We need to get out of the city. She pointed to Moore. Okay, we split up. Mrs. Moore, you look after that bloke. She looked at Jake. Jake, distract them. Go right, I'll go left. We'll meet back at the Bridge Street. Move. The three of them left, and Celine made a decision. I'm going with her, she said, hugging Jessie and running after Sally. Come on, let's go, the doctor told Moreau, Jessie, and Grant. He looked around, trying to avoid more Cybermen patrols. Then found a side street. There. Which way? Celine asked as they ran. I don't know where we are. Did they see us? Sally asked in reply. Do they know where we are? I think they saw us. I bet they can see in the dark. I bet they've got satellites. I bet they saw us in the dark. They looked at each other and simultaneously said, they know where we are. Sally shook her head. I don't get it. What is it with you? You're exactly like me. Celine shrugged. I bet you're braver considering you're doing all this. Sally snorted. Oh yeah, 10 times, she paused. Still, your friends aren't bad. I'll give you that. Celine grinned. Oh, that's the doctor and Jessie. I just tag along behind. Well then, you're not that bad. Celine tilted her head. Do you think? Sally nodded. Yeah, I suppose. The sound of Cybermen's footsteps filled the air, and Celine whispered, Cybermen. Parallel girls looked at each other, and then, at the same time, split up, and they ran their different ways. Jessie looked up from where she was standing as Jake ran to meet them. I ran past the river, he gasped. You should have seen it. The whole city's on march. Hundreds of Cybermen all down the Thames. A figure with long hair began running towards them. Here she is, Jake cried happily, turning toward her. Which one are you? I'm sorry, she gasped, bending over double, pushing her hair behind her ears. The Cyberman, she couldn't. Are you Sally? Jake demanded. Are you Sally? Jessie slowly stepped forward. Celine, she asked slowly, that you? In reply, the woman held up her hand. I shot up her arm, and she stood in full icicle form for a second. Both Jake and Moreau gasped and stepped back. What the hell? Jake demanded. It's me, Celine gasped again, turning back to her normal self. Jessie hugged her hard, and her friend returned it. Celine tried to explain to Jake. She was running. There were too many of them. Shut it, Jake ordered. There was nothing I could do, Celine insisted. I said shut it, Jake barked, and Celine stiffened. Don't even talk about her. You're nothing. You are nothing. Jessie buried her head in her friend's shoulder as those words brought back memories she had worked so hard to bury. A comforting arm wrapped around her shoulders, and Celine let Jessie go so the doctor could take Jessie. She sniffed and leaned further into him as the doctor looked at Jake. We can mourn her when London is safe, he told him. But now we move on. The whole of London's been sealed off, and the entire population's been taken inside that place, the doctor began, folding his arms and standing next to Jessie, who sat on a picnic table opposite Battersea, to be converted. So basically, we've got to get in there and shut it down, Jessie finished. How do we do that? Celine asked, checking the gun she had to make sure that it had its rounds. The doctor shrugged. Oh, I'll think of something. Celine glared at him. You're just making this up as you go along? Yep, the doctor confirmed with a grin, but I do it brilliantly. Here we go, Moreau said as she joined them, opening up her laptop and showing something on the screen. That's a schematic of the old factory. Look, she pointed. Cooling tunnels underneath the plant, big enough to walk through. We go under there, walk up in the control center, the doctor asked. Moore agreed. There's another way in, Grant brought up. There's the front door. They've taken Sky for upgrading. That's how she'll get in. We can't go strolling up, Jake denied. Or we could, with these. Moore held up her hand, revealing 2 sets of earpods. Fake earpods, dead, no signal, but put them on, the Cybermen would mistake you for one of the crowd. Grant nodded. That's my job. You'd have to show no emotion, the doctor warned. Not at all. Any signs of emotion would give you away. I'm a special ops agent, Grant replied, taking one of the sets. He only spared Jessie and Celine a glance when both of them began to snicker. I'll do it. Jessie straightened up. How many of those you got? Just these 2 sets, Moore replied. Okay, Jessie replied, holding out her hand. If that's the best way of finding Sky, then I'm coming with you. Why does she matter to you? Grant asked in surprise. Jessie took the other pods and turned to the doctor. We haven't got time, doctor. I'm going with him, and that's that. The doctor looked at her. No stopping you, is there? No, she replied bluntly. Besides, easy way to get out. How? Jake asked suspiciously. The doctor changed the subject. Tell you what, we can take the ear pods at the same time. Give people their minds back so they don't walk into that place like sheep. He turned to Jake. Jakey boy, Lumix transmitting the control signal. It must be from over there. He waved his sonic screwdriver towards the power station, pointing out the Zeppelin on top. There it is, on the Zeppelin, you see? Great big transmitter. Good thing Lumix likes showing off. Reckon you could take it out? Jake nodded. Consider it done. The doctor raised an eyebrow to Moore. Mrs. Moore, would you care to accompany me into the cooling tunnels? She smiled. How could I refuse an offer of cooling tunnels? The doctor rubbed his hands together. We attack on 3 sides, above, between, and below. We get to the control center, stop the conversion machines. Celine raised an eyebrow. And me? The doctor stopped. You better not stay out of the trouble and be the tin dog, Celine warned, holding up a hand. No, those days are over. She folded her arms. I'm going with Jake. I don't need you, icicle girl, Jake muttered. To hell with being an icicle, Celine snapped. You got that? I'm offering to help. Whatever, he replied, walking off. Celine, good luck, the doctor told her, giving her a hug. Yeah, you too, she replied. Then hug Jessie as well. Jessie, I'll see you later. Yeah, you better, Jessie retorted with a smile on her face. If we survive this, I'll see you back at the TARDIS, the doctor told Celine. She nodded. That's a promise. Jessie turned to the doctor, and he leaned down, kissing her forehead before hugging her tightly. Good luck, he whispered to her. You too, she whispered back. It's freezing, Moreau commented as they made their way through the cooling tunnels. The doctor looked around, trying to see in the dark. Any sign of a light switch? He asked hopefully. Can't see a thing, Moreau replied, digging through her backpack. But I've got these. She smiled and pulled out 2 lights on a headband. A device for every occasion. The doctor grinned and took one, turning the light on. Haven't got a hot dog in there, have you? He asked as they kept moving on a little more confidently, thanks to the lights. I'm starving. Of all the things to wish for, Moore commented. That's mechanically recovered meat. I know, it's the Cybermen of food, but it's tasty. A proper torch as well. Let's see where we are. The doctor looked down the hallway and blinked when he saw the Cybermen lining both sides of the tunnel, already converted. Just put on ice, he murmured, tapping on one's face. When he got no reaction, he turned to Moore. Come on, let's go slowly. Keep an eye out of the trip system. They kept moving through the tunnel, keeping a close eye on the Cybermen. Jesse looked out into the streets to see people being escorted into Battersea. Chamber 6 now open for human upgrading, a Cyberman announced over the intercom. Chamber 7 now open for human upgrading. Chamber 8 now open for human upgrading. Just put them on, Grant whispered to Jesse as they pulled their earpods out. Don't show any emotion, no signs, nothing, okay? She nodded. Don't worry, we can do it. Chamber 7 now open for human upgrading. We could die in there, Grant warned, looking at Jesse as they slipped on the earpods. Why are you doing this? Jesse looked at him solemn. Let's just say I'm doing it for my best friends, my partners. Grant nodded in acceptance, and Jesse took a deep breath. Right, let's go. Chamber 8 now open for human upgrading. Jesse and Grant stood and headed for the precision. Chamber 9 now open for upgrading. The 2 caught hands for just a second, squeezing before letting go. Chamber 10 now open for human upgrading. Jessie fell in line first, relaxing her face for no emotion. Grant behind her. Chamber 11 now open for human upgrading. Celine pulled herself up next to Jake, looking out onto the roof platform. 2 guards, Jake reported. We can take them. Don't kill them, Celine warned. He looked at her. We'll put you in charge. If you kill them, what's the difference between you and the Cybermen? Celine pointed out. He looked at her for a second with something similar to respect before digging in his pockets. Well, I suppose we could use these. Celine wrinkled her nose at the bottles as he pulled out. Smelling salts? Bit stronger than that, he replied, handing her one. One of Moreau's little tricks. Should knock them out. 3, 2, 1. Celine ran in one direction, Jake in the other. She made it to one of the human guards, shoving the bottle under his nose. He collapsed instantly, and Celine caught him as Jake did the same to the other one. There's got to be more guards on board, she warned. Jake grinned. Then let's go get them. How did you get into this, then? Rattling along with the preachers, the doctor asked, genuinely curious as they kept moving through the tunnels. Oh, I used to be ordinary, Murmur replied. Worked at Cybus Industries 9 to 5 till one day I find something I'm not supposed to. A file on the mainframe. All I did was read it. Then suddenly I've got men with guns knocking in the middle of the night. Life on the run. Then I found the preachers. They needed a techie, so I just sat down and taught myself everything. He looked at her. What about Mrs. Moreau? Well, he's not called Moreau. I got that from a book. Mrs. Moreau. It's safer to not use real names, but he thinks I'm dead. It was the only way to keep him safe, him and the kids. The doctor swallowed as memories of the time Moore flew through his mind, of his wife and kids, and possibly even his granddaughter. Moore tilted her head, looking at him. What about you? Got any family, or... I've got Jessie, the doctor replied, and I've got the whole world on my shoulders. He looked at her. Go on, then. What's your real name? She hesitated. Angela Price. Don't tell a soul. He grinned at her. Not a word. They kept walking through the tunnels when she stopped. Doctor, did that one just move? He shook his head. It's just the torchlight. Keep going on. Come on. He, however, stopped when a Cyberman in front of them began to move. They're waking up, he realized, grabbing her arm. Run! As they kept running, the Cybermen fell in behind them. Get up, Moore shouted, pointing to a ladder at the end of the tunnel. Quick, they're coming. He jumped onto the ladder and began to climb, twisting the wheel as the transporter above them was shoving it open. Come on, he told her, pulling her up with him. Come on! He slammed the trapdoor down and sealed it with the sonic screwdriver. He panted a little and then grinned at Moreau. Oh, good team, Mrs. Moreau, he complimented. Units upgraded now 6,500. Repeat, 6,500 and rising. Jessie inhaled sharply when a Cyberman cut her off from the precision. You will wait, it ordered before moving away. She breathed out shakily, and she felt Grant take her hand silently. You okay? He asked quietly. She gulped. No, she whispered back. Chamber 6 now open for human upgrading. All reject stock will be disintegrated. Any sign of Sky? Grant asked. A few Cybermen clumped up to them. One of them took a closer look at Grant. You are Grant Ward, it said. Confirm you are Grant Ward. Grant swallowed. Confirmed, he replied as if automatically. I recognize you. I went first. Jessie's eyes widened, and Grant seemed to realize it at the same time as she did. My name was Sky Ward. No, yet Jessie gasped in shock. What? Grant demanded at the same time. They are unprogrammed, the Cyberman announced, and several other Cybermen joined them. Restrained. You're lying! Grant shouted as both of them were grabbed. You're not her! You're not my Sky! No, I am Cyberform. Once I was Sky Ward. But you can't be, Jessie protested, even though she knew it was true. Not her. Her brain is inside this body. Sky, I came to save you, Grant told it, still working to convince it otherwise. This man worked for Cybus Industries to create our species, the Cyberman replied, looking at its comrades. He will be rewarded by force. Take them to Cyber Control. Jessie swallowed as they were marched off. They killed her, she whispered, her voice choking up. They just took her and killed her. Maybe there's a chance, Grant offered, turning to her. I don't know. Maybe we can reverse it. There's nothing we can do. But if she remembers, he looked at behind them. Where is she? Which one was it? Which one was her? Jessie shook her head, still reeling from the fact that Sky was dead. They all looked the same. Celine wrung her hand out as Jake jumped a guard onto the floor. Nice one, he commented before channeling Soldier again. Nobody's home. Find the transmitter controls. What would they look like? Celine asked, moving around. Well, I don't know, he replied sarcastically. They might have transmitter controls written in big red letters. Just look. Celine grumbled more to herself as she continued moving, finding the steering wheel. She opened a door nearby and squeaked when she found something inside. Cyberman. Jake held up a gun to it, turning on the alcove light. Celine took a closer look. It's dead, she commented. I don't think it was ever alive. She gently knocked on its head, hearing it being hollow. It's empty. She pulled back. No brain. It's just a robot suit. It's for display. Both of them paused, then Jake took a deep breath. Okay, transmitter. You are not upgraded, a Cyberman announced as it marched towards the doctor and Monroe. Yeah? Monroe asked, pulling out a small rod with copper wire on it. Well, upgrade this. She tossed it to the Cyberman. It stuck to the metal, and the Cyberman jerked, sparking as it collapsed. The doctor raised an eyebrow at her, and looked at her. What the hell was that? Electromagnetic bomb, she replied. Takes out computers. I figured it might stop the cyber suit. He grinned. You figured right. He knelt next to the Cyberman. Now, let's have a look. Know your enemy. A logo on the front. He saw the Cybus Industries logo. Lumix turned them into a brand, Heart of Steel, but look. He removed the logo, recoiling after finding not just wiring and electronics. Is that flesh? Mar gasped. The doctor agreed, examining it. Central nervous system, artificially grown, then threaded throughout the suit so it responds like a living thing. Well, it is a living thing, but look, he pulled something out. Emotional inhibitor, stops them from feeling anything. But why? Monroe asked. It's still got a human brain. Imagines its reaction if it could see itself, realize itself inside this thing. They'd go insane. So they cut out one thing that makes them human? The doctor nodded, swallowing, because they have to. Why am I cold? The doctor looked down sharply as the Cyberman spoke. Oh my god, Moore whispered in shock. It's alive. It can feel. We broke the inhibitor, the doctor realized, looking down at what he had in his hands. I'm sorry, he apologized to the Cyberman. I'm so sorry. Why so cold? It asked. Can you remember my name? Sally Flame. The doctor inhaled sharply as More's eyes widened. You're a woman. Where's Gareth? Sally asked. Who's Gareth? He can't see me, Sally said. It's unlucky the night before. You're getting married, Moore realized. I'm cold, Sally said, and the doctor closed his eyes. I'm so cold. It's all right, the doctor told her, swallowing as he realized that Jessie and Grant were up there right now, in the chambers, where they could easily also be turned into Cybermen. He wasn't going to let that happen to either of them, even when he barely knew Grant. You sleep now, Sally. Just go to sleep. He aimed the sonic screwdriver at the chest cavity, and he switched her off, then looked up at Moore. Sally Flame didn't die for nothing, because that's the key, he said, the emotional inhibitor. If we could find the code behind it, the cancellation code, then feed it through the system into every Cyberman's head, they'd realize what they are. And what happens then? Monroe asked. I think it would kill them, he admitted. Could we do that? She nodded. We've got to, before they kill everyone else. There's no choice, Doctor. It has to be done. She stood up, and a Cyberman suddenly towered over her and brought its hand down on her shoulder, electrocuting her to death. No, the doctor shouted, standing as well as other Cybermen approached. No, you didn't have to kill her. Sensors detect a binary vascular system, the doctor reported. You are an unknown upgrade. You will be taken for analysis. Celine peered at the transmitter control box. The transmitter controls are sealed behind here, she told Jake. We need, an oxyacetylene or something. Oh, I forgot to bring it with me, Jake said sarcastically. Well, then what do we do? We'll crash the Zeppelin. Is he nuts? Celine thought, staring at him. With us inside it? We could set it to automatic and then jet lag it. Just let's have a look. Celine joined in by the steering controls. She ran through her knowledge of computers from spending time with Tony and Bruce. Even when Jake snorted in annoyance. It's locked. There's got to be an override. Let me have a go, she suggested. I'm good with computers. At Jake's incredulous look, she stared at him bluntly. Just trust me. He stood back, and Celine began to work. I've been captured, but don't worry, the doctor said as he was led through the power station. Jess and Grant are still out there. They can rescue me. He cut off when he entered the control room, seeing Grant and Jessie leaning against their few control boxes. Grant looking devastated, Jessie looking like her best friend had died. Oh, well, never mind. He approached them slowly, knowing something was instantly wrong. You okay? She asked. Yeah, Jessie replied hoarsely. But they got Skye. We were too late, Grant agreed. Lumic killed her. The doctor raised an eyebrow. Then where is he, the famous Mr. Lumic? He asked, turning to the Cybermen. Don't we get the chances to meet our Lord and Master? He has been upgraded, one replied. So he's just like you. He is superior. The Lumic unit has been designated Cyber Controller. The doors nearby opened, and the doctor turned as Jessie gasped in horror. A large Cyberman in a wheelchair, just as robotic as he, was rolled out. This is the Age of Steel, Lumic announced, and I am its creator. Fantastic, the doctor thought sarcastically, stepping in front of Jessie. Almost there, Celine told Jake, her fingers flying over the keys. Not bad work, he complimented. Celine grinned at him when something caught her attention out of the corner of her eye. Look out! Jake dodged the Cyberman arm coming down on him. It's moving, he shouted unnecessarily. You said it was dead. Yeah, but it's a robot. But a robot's still a big robot, Celine pointed out before getting an idea and grinning. Wait a minute. She began backing up. Hey, Cyberman, over here. Come on, you brainless lump of metal. Come and have a go. It clomped towards her, but Celine backed up against the panel with the transmitter controls. When the Cyberman brought down its fist on her, she ducked, and the Cyberman punched through the controls. Electricity warped through its body, and Celine grinned to Jake, who was looking at her in shock. Transmitters down, she said happily. That's my friends at work, the doctor said gleefully when they heard the screaming of people outside. Good team, the two of them. He faced Lumic. Mr. Lumic, I think that's a vote for free will. I have factories waiting on 7 continents, Lumic replied. If the earpods have failed, then the Cybermen will take humanity by force. London has fallen, so shall the world. Celine kept working on the keyboard when a view screen popped up. Hold on, I've logged on to Cyber Control. She grinned when she saw who was on the screen. They're alive, the doctor and Jessie. There they are. Never mind them, Jake replied, pointing to the Cyberman in the wheelchair. What the hell is that thing? Shush, Celine replied, looking around. Has this thing got sound? I will bring peace to the world, everlasting peace and unity and uniformity, Lumic told the doctor. And imagination, the doctor wondered. What about that? The one thing that led you here, imagination. You're killing it dead. What is your name? I'm the doctor, he replied, resisting the grin when Jessie snorted. A redundant title. Doctors do not exist. Need not exist. Cybermen never sicken. Yeah, but that's it. That's exactly the point. He began to walk around, tired of standing still. Oh, Lumic, you're a clever man. I'd call you a genius, except I'm in the room. Rude, Jessie hissed. And not Ginger, he added, and Jessie grinned as he continued. But everything you've invented and you did to fight your sickness, and that's brilliant. That is so human. But once you get rid of sickness and morality, then what's left to strive for, eh? The Cybermen won't advance. You'll just stop. You'll stay like this forever. A metal earth with metal men and metal thoughts. Lacking the one thing that makes this planet so alive. People. Ordinary, stupid, brilliant people. You are proud of your emotions, Lumic stated. Oh yes, the doctor agreed. Then tell me, doctor, have you known grief and rage and pain? Susan leaving the TARDIS, the Time War. Jessie running towards him on the game station before being disintegrated by the android. Yes, he replied, swallowing. Yes, I have. And they hurt? Oh yes, the doctor agreed. I could set you free, Lumic suggested. Would you not want that, a life without pain? You might as well kill me. Then I take that option. It is not yours to take, the doctor snapped. You're a cyber controller. You don't control me or anything with blood in its heart. You have no means of stopping me. I have an army, a species of my own. You just don't get it, do you? An army is nothing. Something red and blinking caught his eye, and he looked into the corner of the room to see Cameron pointing down at it, and its light was flashing red. He resisted the urge to smirk. Because those ordinary people, they're the key, he said slowly, forming a plan and carefully forming his words. The most ordinary person could change the world. Celine paid attention to the doctor as he stared at the camera. Some ordinary man or woman, or some idiot or icicle. He stressed icicle, and she smiled, waiting for instructions. All it takes is for her to find, say, the right numbers, say, the right codes. Say, for example, the code behind the emotional inhibitor, the code right in front of her. Because even an icicle knows how to use computers these days. What? Grant asked next to him as Celine worked on the keyboard. Knows how to get past firewalls and passwords, the doctor continued, and Celine cracked code after code with Jake over her shoulder. Knows how to find something encrypted in the Lumic family database he turned. What was it, Grant? Binary what? Grant coughed loudly, and in the middle of it, Celine caught binary 9. Binary 9, she repeated as she worked. An icicle could find that code, the doctor commented. Cancellation code, and she'd keep on typing, keep on fighting, anything to save her friends. Your words are irrelevant, the Cyberman, most likely Lumic declared. Yeah, talks too much. That's my problem, the doctor agreed. Turning to Jessie. Lucky I got you that cheap tariff, Jessie, for all our long chats on your phone. Celine smiled when the code popped up. 6879760. She held out her hand to Jake. Phone. You will be deleted, Lumic declared, and Jessie backed up. Yes, the doctor replied, still standing in front of her, occasionally glancing up at the camera. Delete, control, hash, all those lovely buttons. Then, of course, my peculiar favorite, send. And let's not forget how you scheduled all those ordinary people in the first place. She looked down when her phone beeped, and she opened the text. She grinned when she saw the glowing numbers, 6879760, by making every bit of technology compatible with everything else. It's for you, she told the doctor, tossing her phone to him. He took it, walked over to the docking station. Like this, he told Lumic, and slammed the phone into it. The code appeared on every screen around the control room, and the Cybermen began to scream. What have you done? Lumic shouted. I gave them back their souls, the doctor replied, running for the door with Jessie and Grant hot on his heels. They can see what you've done, Lumic, and it's killing them. Delete, Lumic called from behind them. Delete! Delete! There's no way out, Grant shouted as they saw their way blocked from many exits. Jessie felt her phone vibrated and held it up to her ear. Jessie, Celine's voice shouted. Jessie, can you hear me? Head for the roof. Jessie looked at the doctor. It's Celine. She says head for the roof. The doctor ran up the metal staircase in front of them, Jessie and Grant right on his heels. When they made it onto the roof, Jessie's jaw dropped when she saw the Zeppelin lowering slowly. Celine, where'd you learn to fly that thing? Not unlike flying one of the Quinjets, Celine replied smilingly. Just hold on, Jessie. I'm coming to get you. A trapdoor under the Zeppelin dropped open, and along with a rope ladder, and Jessie's jaw dropped. You've got to be kidding. Jessie, get up, the doctor told her, running for the ladder. She batted along behind them and let him help pull her up, and Grant joined them only a few rungs below. Hold on tight, Celine crowed over the phone. We're going up. Welcome to Celine Harper's airline. Please enjoy your flight. Woohoo! Jessie laughed as the Zeppelin began to rise. We did it. Something tugged on the ladder, and Jessie yelped, nearly losing her grip. One of the doctor's arms clung to her, helping her with her grip. And both of them looked down, eyes widening when they saw Lumic. The doctor dug his hands into his pocket, and he pulled the sonic screwdriver before handing it down to Grant, who was closest to the Lumic. Grant, take this, he shouted, and Grant brought a hand up to grasp it. Use it. Hold the button down. Press it against the rope. Just do it. Grant got a hold of it and held it against the rope, looking down at Lumic. Sky War, he spat to Lumic. This is for her. The rope gave way, and Lumic fell screaming into the exploding power station. Jessie breathed a sigh of relief and slumped against the doctor, still holding onto the rope. He kissed the top of her head comfortably as Celine flew the Zeppelin away from London. Jessie smiled, glad to finally be out of the maid's uniform as she strapped her boots back on. Oh, this is much better, she said happily. Grant folded his arms, looking at the TARDIS. So what happens inside that thing, then? Do you want to see, she offered, looking up at him. He shook his head hesitantly. No, I don't think so. Already bad enough working for S.H.I.E.L.D. But you two, all that stuff you said about different worlds. Who are you? It's like you say, Jessie replied, slowly straightening up and looking in her jacket pocket. Imagine there are different worlds, parallel worlds, worlds where another Grant Ward and Sky's still alive. She pulled out her badge and flipped it open to him and found a picture with the three of them together, and Grant's eyes widened. And their partner, she finished softly. One of their best friends. He took a shuddering breath. I've got to go. But if you just look inside... No, I can't. He shook his head, backing away. There's all those Lumic factories out there, all those Cybermen still in storage. Somebody's got to tell everybody what happened here, because who knows how many of those earpods actually were under Lumic's control and shield. Someone's got to carry on the fight. Jesse, the doctor called, poking his head out of the TARDIS. I've only got 5 minutes of power. We've got to go. The doctor could show you, Jesse told Grant, trying one last time. Thank you, the Grant whispered, giving her a quick hug. For everything. Ward, she said, her voice cracking. He shook his head. Don't. He backed away. Just don't. Josie took a deep breath as he turned and ran off, but turned back as Celine and Jake walked up. Celine smirking at the doctor. Here it is, she said, handing him a bundle. I found it, not even a crease. My suit, he said gleefully, and Jessie smirked, walking to his side. Good girl, he turned to Jake. Now then, Jake, we've got to run. But one more thing. Mrs. Monroe, her real name was Angela Price. She's got a husband out there and children. Find them. Tell them how she died saving the world. Jake nodded. Yeah, of course I will. The doctor clapped his hands. Off we go, then. Celine looked back and forth between the TARDIS and Jake. Thing is, she took a deep breath. I'm staying. Jessie stopped short, her eyes widening in shock, and the doctor stopped as well, for once looking like he was caught off guard. You're doing what? He asked. You can't, she whispered. Celine shrugged. It sort of balances out, because this world lost its Sally, but there's me, and there's work to be done with all those Cybermen still out there. But you can't stay, Jessie protested. Jessie, Celine told her, stepping forward. I did the search, too. The friends I lost in the war are still here. Remember them? Yeah. They might need me. Celine cracked a smile. Besides, if I can find Ward again and ask, he might bring me into the shield here. What about me? Jessie asked. What if I need you? Jessie, you don't. She placed her hand on Jessie's shoulders. You never will. Not anymore. It's just you and him. You and the doctor. We had a great team a long time ago, but not anymore. We'll come back. Jessie told her, a little hope in her voice. We can travel anywhere. Come and see you, yeah? We can't. Jessie turned to the doctor, her eyes widening at the sad look on his face. I told you, traveling between parallel worlds is impossible. We only got here by accident. We fell through a crack in time, and when we leave, I've got to close it. He looked back at Celine. We can't ever return. Celine didn't back down. Instead, she simply walked towards him. Doctor? He nodded in acceptance and hugged her. Take Jessie's phone. I've got the code. Get it out there. Stop those factories. He grinned, pulling back. And good luck, Celine, the icicle. She mocked, glaring at him. Watch it. He stepped back towards the TARDIS, and Jessie sighed, pulling out her phone and handing it to Celine. Thanks, Celine told her, taking it. We've had a laugh, though, haven't we? Seen it all, been there and back. Who would have thought, me and you, off the old Triskelion, flying everywhere, even running through the stars. Dancing across time and space, Jessie sniffed, all those years just sitting there. Imagining what we'd do one day, she forced out a laugh. We never saw this, did we? Go on, Celine told her gently. Don't miss your flight. Jessie hugged her best friend one last time, then ran into the TARDIS, closing the door and letting her tears finally fall. Celine smiled sadly, wiping her own tears away. She saw Jake begin to walk away. Hey, Jake, she called to him. You'll want to watch this. Jake turned back just as the TARDIS engines began to wheeze, and the TARDIS dematerialized. His eyes widened in shock. What the hell? He asked in shock. Jessie grinned proudly. That's the doctor in the TARDIS, she replied, her pride clear in her voice. With Jessie Nightshade. Skye was pouring herself a drink in the bar of the bus when she heard the sound of the TARDIS engines. She stopped immediately, put her drink down, and then ran for the area where Lola and the other shield cars were being held. She ran down the stairs, going as fast as she could, and she could see Fitzsimmons stop what they were doing on the lap, and soon Coulson emerged on the top floor. The TARDIS materialized, and Jessie opened the door. Skye's eyes widened in shock when she saw the state her friend was in. Her eyes red, tears still running down her cheeks. Jessie? She asked, approaching. Jessie looked at her in immense relief. You're alive, she whispered, to Skye's confusion. Oh, God, you're alive. Well, I was the last time I looked, she said in a joking voice. But when Jessie let out a sob, she immediately kept walking forward. What is it? She asked, holding out her arms. And Jessie practically collapsed into them, crying her eyes out. Gemma instantly ran out of the lab as Coulson began to descend down the stairs. What's happened, Jessie? She looked up as the doctor appeared in the doorway of the TARDIS. Sadness in his eyes as well. What's wrong? Where did you go? She demanded. Far away, he replied simply, shaking his head. That was far away. Coulson joined them, rubbing Jessie's back. Where's Celine? He asked. Jessie let out a sob, and Skye's gaze flew to the doctor in shock. He simply gave a sad smile and replied simply, She's gone home. Celine buckled herself into the passenger side of the van and looked at Jake. I know it isn't easy with my face looking exactly like Sally, but I'm a different woman, she told him. I'm not replacing her, but we can remember her by fighting in her name. Jake looked at her with acceptance, and Celine grinned. With all those cyber factories out there, do you think there'll be one in Paris? Jake blinked. Yeah. Right then. She cocked her gun, smirking at the shocked look on his face. Let's go and liberate Paris. What? Jake asked incredulously. You and me in a van? There's nothing wrong with a van, Celine told him, smiling as she remembered a one time when the doctor was all leather and big ears, and Jessie was still innocent, until the day came when she had to return to him, ripping open the TARDIS to do so. After all, she gave him a coy smile, I once saved the universe with a big yellow truck. You're kidding. Celine smirked. Some things are hard to believe until you see them yourself. Jake paused, looking at her, then held out his hand. I don't think I ever fully introduced myself. Jake Simmons. Start again? Celine smiled, shaking it. Celine Harper, she nodded. Start again. Okay, so that was the next 2 chapters. Peace out, knights.